Okay, everybody, I'm going to show you in this video how to create the comparative industry analysis slide for your PowerPoint presentation for the analysis presentations. The first thing you need to do is you need to go into the industry results, go into the reports, and then get to the Capstone Courier and take your most recent round. So if you're doing this in week 4, the most recent round you'll have would be round 3 for the purposes of this presentation. And you've got two options, the HTML and the PDF version. Go with the HTML version even if you've already downloaded PDF. The HTML version, which is popping up right now, will allow you to take a cut and paste of this whole area right here. And when you go into Excel, it will put each one of these values in its own cell, like this. If you use the PDF version, it'll give you gobbledygook. And then you need to just go to the top here and expand. Okay, so now you've got all this laid out nicely. The only thing is you have to take these headings right here, and then you need to take the average of every one of these. And scroll down. And this would be the industry average. Okay. Now you're going to have to do a little bit of cleanup because some of these numbers, don't look right. For example, the emergency loan is not a %, so you're going to have to change that into dollars and get rid of the pennies. Sales, again, change that into like a number and get rid of the decimals. EBIT. In fact, what we could do now is we could take this format that we've just created, click on this, go to the format painter at the top left, and then scroll all the way down like that and paste it down, and that'll put that all into dollars rather than decimals. Okay, so now when you have all that, what I would do is I would take all that and I would copy, and then I would paste the numbers 1, 2, 3 here like that. So all these now convert from being decimal values, from being formulas, the average formula, to being actual the type of numbers that you want. There's a couple more that we want to fix as well. Leverage is just a number, not a percentage. 1.75. Asset turnover is also a number. Return, the rest of these are all correctly formatted. Okay, so now that you have all that, I'm going to assume that I'm Team Andrews. So I'm going to delete these columns. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to calculate the variance. I'm going to take Andrew's figure and I'm going to subtract the industry average. Then I'm going to copy all that down, expand, and unfortunately I'm going to have to take the format painter again for this and just paste it all the way down like that. This needs to be just a number, and this needs to be just a number as well. Okay, and I'm going to just format this the same here. And then we want a column as to whether it's favorable or unfavorable. And what we would do there is you just need to look at it and say, well, the industry average for return on sales was 0.67 and we were at 3.5, so that means we were favorable, because it's the higher return on sales you get, the better, the better the situation is. Asset turnover, you want that to turn over as high as possible. Andrews had 1.12, the industry average was 1.1, so that's a favorable variance. Return on assets, you want that to be as high as possible. Andrews had 3.9, the industry average was 2.1, so that's favorable. Leverage, okay, this we'll go into in another week, but generally I think they want you to have it between 1.2 and 1.5, and the average is 1.9, which is too much. 1.75 is too much, but it's better than the 1.9, so it's favorable. The return on equity, 7.3 for Andrews. The industry average was only 2.82, so that means that this is a favorable variance. The average emergency loan was 9.1 million, and Andrews took a 20 million emergency loan, which meant that that was an unfavorable variance. Sales for Andrews are 193.1 million, while industry average was 154.1, so that means that this is a favorable variance. EBIT was a profitability figure. Andrews was 19.9 million, while the industry average was only 12.8, so that was favorable. And then the profits were 6.7 million compared to the industry average of 3.9, which is favorable. Cumulative profit is 31 million, whereas the industry average is only 23, so that means Andrews was favorable on that. SGA as a percentage of sales. Now don't get caught here. Up to this point, if this number in the cell that I've highlighted for Andrews, if it was higher than the industry average, that was favorable. However, that's not the case with an expense item like this. You want this to be lower than the industry average, and it was lower than the industry average, 10.3 as opposed to the average of 13.5, which is favorable. Contribution margin was 31.2 and industry average was 31.7, so this was very slightly unfavorable variance. Okay, and that's how you get all the numbers that you need. Then you just clean all this up so that you've gotten rid of these lines, these borders, and everything. Make sure everything's the same font. Like this font is the same as that font. What font is that? Calibri 11. Whereas that's Arial, so I'm going to change that to Calibri 11. And this whole thing is going to be Calibri 11. It still doesn't look quite right. I'll let you play with it, okay? But I want it all to look attractive with the same font size and everything. And then what I would do is I would highlight the top 4 items, which will probably be your sales. So use some kind of a border around that, or a highlight. Profits would be also important. Contribution margin is very important because that shows how strong your production is. And maybe one other, like return on equity, since that's what shareholders care about. And that's how I would go about creating the comparative industry average data and prepare it so that it then looks nice for you to then put into the PowerPoint slide.